next session by Shri Vaidyanathan ji, who will be discussing, who will be speaking on the topic, a discussion on Śāstropadeśa-upapatti as per Bhāṣyārkaprakāśa. He will be also highlighting from this the Ramaraya Kavi's commentary on Bhagavad Gita. A brief introduction to the speaker. Shri Vaidyanathan ji is the student of Swami Tattvavidananda Saraswati ji, and he is a Vedanta seeker, a great, very genuine scholar and seeker. He is currently pursuing PhD in economics from Center for International Trade and Development at Jawaharlal Nehru University. But his heart also lies in Vedanta. So we are very glad to have you for the program, Vaidyanathan ji. Please go ahead and start your session.
Om Namah Paramahamsa Swadita Charana Kamala Chinmakarandaya Bhakta Jana Manasa Nivasaya Shri Ramachandraya Om Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripatam Aham Vande Gurum Tattvavidambaram Om Adya Bhagavataha Shri Raghuraj Shikhamane Mahatya Anukampaya Pravartamane Asmin Karyakrame Advaita Vedante Śāstropadeśa upapatti Ramanujamate tad anupapattischa iti vishaye Shri Bellankonda Ramaraya Kavindra Virachita Bhāṣyārkaprakāśa vyakhyam ashritya yathamati kinchit Angla bhashayameva vaktum ichhami. My first introduction to Shri Bellankonda Ramaraya Kavi was in 2011. So Swamiji was teaching us Gita Bhashyam. As part of it, he used to often quote Ramaraya Kavi's name with great respect and with great reverence and authority. So he would often say Bellankonda Varla Anna Roy, and then he would assign great authority to his words. That very first time I heard that name, it generated some curiosity in me, and I searched on Google. Thanks to Archive, his family, they have uploaded all his works even back then in Devanagari script, some in Telugu script for free viewing and reading and etc. So this Bhāṣyārkaprakāśa is in fact one of the first works of his that I read. After that, I had the great fortune of being benefited by many of his works. So it gives me a good occasion now to speak a little on this. The portion that I have selected from is in some sense continuation from the previous speaker in textual reference context. So this is the 12th shloka. In context is in the 12th shloka of the Gita. Natvevaham jatunasam natve neme janadhipaha aseva na bhavishyamaha sarve vayam atastaram. That is the shloka in which there is some discussion happening. So Ramaraya Kavi's Vyakhya is primarily a sub-commentary on Shankara's Vyakhya, Shankara's Bhashyam, and after commenting on Shankara's Bhashyam, he takes over some portions for independent discussion, and then he reviews Ramanuja's Bhashyam and critiques it in his view. To me, having studied a little of Ramaraya Kavi's works, it doesn't sound to me that he is trying to be argumentative in his works. To me, it looks like a very fair examination of these views, Ramanuja's views, and how he understands Advaita Vedanta. That is Ramaraya Kavi's own understanding of Advaita Vedanta. He's trying to examine and ascertain some facts. That's how I see even his other works, Advaita Vijaya, Advaita Amritam, everywhere. It looks like he's thinking out aloud. That is the tone of the works that we see. And even here, when he's critiquing Ramanujacharya's works, making an objective analysis and seeing the defects in the other work that is in the Bhashyam of Ramanujacharya. That is how it seems. And then about the poetic genius of Ramaraya Kavi, it comes up even in his Bhashya Granthas. For example, this way of ascertaining what could be really the intention of Krishna and the Gita Acharya, he tries to point out here and there based on just the words of the Gita. Instead of course, one way would be to ascribe stories. For Brahmasutra Bhashya, usually they do. All acharyas seem to have met Vyasa, and then Vyasa is supposed to have, what should I say, authorized the commentary, etc. the more nice way to present this is the best bhav. This is in accordance with the mula is to analyze internal analysis, as they say. Ramaraya Kavi does that often. For example, in this very own shloka, Natvevaham Jatunasam Natvam Neme Janadhipaha, based on that, Ramanujacharya wanted to say that there is Dvaita, Jiva, Bheda is in fact true, because you see how how Gitacharya himself is speaking, Tvam, Aham, so ime Janadhipaha, he is using so many pronouns to distinguish between himself, Arjuna, and everybody else in the battlefield. That itself shows that he is speaking of Dvaita, Jiva, Bheda. So one of Ramaraya Kavi's geniuses all through the Bhāṣyārkaprakāśa is he will point out, if this was indeed the intention of Gitacharya, Krishna, he could have uttered the verse in this way. He did not utter it in this way. In fact, he uttered it the other way. Therefore, what the opponent is pointing out cannot be the intention of Krishna. For example, here he says, if Krishna wanted indeed intent to say that there is Bheda, Jiva Bheda was his intention, Krishna would have said, Ishwaroham yatha nityaha Jivayuyam Thataivahi. See, he fits in the meter, etc. He presents an Anushtup Shloka and says, Krishna would have said like this if what you propose is the intended meaning. So this keeping the text of the Gita itself and analyzing and ascertaining the true meaning of the Gita is a very nice feature. In fact, I would very quickly digress a bit and point out another great such exercise about Brahma Sutra Bhashyam itself. One great Mahatma, his name is Swami Chidghanananda Puri. So he belonged to the Ramakrishna Mutt. He wrote a book, Brahma Sutra Bhashya Vimarsha, so in which he analyzes the text of the sutra itself and then tries to ascertain which bhashyam, in fact, he analyzes all existing bhashyams, then tries to present which bhashyam, in fact, is closer to Vyasa or Badarayana's view. So Ramaraya Kavi does such an exercise in his bhashyam, in his Vyakhya, Gita Bhāṣyārkaprakāśa Vyakhya. It's a very nice exercise, and very interesting also to the reader. So very exciting, I would admit. So let's see some views here. In this context, he is criticizing or critiquing Ramanuja's views, and I am choosing a particular portion of Ramanujacharya's critique of Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, and Ramaraya Kavi's counter to that criticism that Ramanujacharya has to offer. So the criticism particularly here that he brings up, that is Ramanujacharya brings up in his commentary in this context, is that in Advaita Vedanta, Śāstropadeśa itself is untenable. So that is because, you see, he is going to mention that. I will read those portions out from the Vyakhya. But then this is an old Purupaksha itself. It's not something new. It has been there. In fact, right from Gaudapadacharya's Karikas, you will find, so Upadesha Dayam Vadaha Jnate Dvaitam Na Vidyate. In that context, Shankaracharya introduces that Karika itself in this way, that you have this Vikalpa, this scheme of Shasta, Shastram, Shishyaha. You are talking of in these terms, and then you are saying there is no, so Advaitam, Paramarthataha, etc. You are able to say in the same vein, same breath, you are also talking about Shishya, Shasta, that is Guru, and Shastram, the teaching. How is that all possible? So he introduces this Karika in this way. Gaudapadacharya has an answer to give. Upadeshadayam Vadaha Jnate Dvaitam Na Vidyate, one of the favorite verses of my Guru also. So Upadeshadayam Vadaha. Therefore, it is just provisionally taken for now. So this is the Siddhanta discussion. Everything is there. This Ramanujacharya brings up in his Vyakhya and says, so this itself shows untenability of Advaita because you're engaging in a Vyavahara, Śāstropadesha Vyavahara. He nicely points out, Ramanujacharya, that is, Shankaramate Grantharambhaha eva nasambhavati. You cannot have Grantharambha in Shankaramata. Why? So I'm kind of doing a re-paraphrasing of Ramaraya Kavi's statement to make it meaningful. So Paramapurushasya Paramartha Drishtehe Upadeshadi Vyavaharascha Nasangachante. So for this Paramapurusha, who's of Paramartha Drishti, Hetugarbha Visheshana, his Paramartha Drishti, that is his vision, or he is established in the Paramarthika level. How can he engage in the Shastropadesha? So why can't he engage? Because Ajnana Krita Bheda Darshanam Tanmula Upadeshadi Vyavaharaha. So for this Vyavahara of Bheda, you need to have Ajnanam at its foundational level. but then he is somebody who is realized who Ishvara. At least Ishvara is realized, that much we have to accept. So for him, how can you have Paramartha Drishtehe Paramapurushasya Nirvishesha Kutastha Nitya Chaitanya Yathatmya Sakshatkarat, because he has a very direct realization about his own nature. So Nivritta Ajnana Tat Karyataya, because for him, by his firm establishment in his own nature, Ajnanam does not exist for him anymore. When there is no Ajnanam, how can you have any Bheda Darshanam? When there is no Bheda Darshanam, how can you have any Upadesha of Shastra at all? This is Ramanujacharya's Purvapaksha. In fact, Ramanujacharya's claim or counter allegation on Advaita, which Ramaraya Kavi picks up as the Purvapaksha and tries to explain. He says, okay, you see, my position I will explain, but before that, you explain your position. In your position, that is in Vishishta Advaita, this Paramapurusha, the same Krishna, so he is Avapta Samasta Kamaha, he is Paripurnaha, he is Atma Ramaha, he is Anandamayaha. So many things you can add. You can form an entire Gadyam just adding all attributes to Ishvara. Such a benevolent Ishvara, he is realized, he is happy by himself, everything. Anandamayaha, Avapta Samasta Kamaha. There is nothing for him left to be achieved. So he need not gain something and suddenly become happy now newly. He is ever established in that Anandamaya state. How can he have any Upadesha at all to Arjuna? So why is he engaging in any Upadesha? This you tell me. So you might say it is because of Leela. Suppose he Vishishtadvaitin. Then my answer would be it is because of Maya, by Maya. That Leela argument he will pursue later. But Balamkunda Ramaraya Kavi first offers the Advaitin's view. He will say by Maya it is possible. By Maya you are able to say who Ishvara himself, Krishna, is able to say. You see, this is what I was talking of, inserting or analyzing Gita through its own words, how he writes his sentences. You see, Yatha Maya Vasat Ajaha Avyayaha Bhutanam Ishvaraha Bhagavan Jataha Iva Lakshate. So he writes that sentence. It's a direct paraphrasing of words in the Gita. He's pointing out words from the Gita and stating the position. Through Maya, this Ajaha, the unborn, Ishvara, unborn, Krishna, unborn, Nija Swarupam of Krishna is appearing as though born. So now, therefore, similarly, Maya can achieve anything. Therefore, for him who there is no Bheda Darshanam at all, through Maya there can be a semblance of a appearance of a Bheda Drishti. So through Maya everything is possible. He wants this is the Siddhanta in fact, and then of course he builds on that Siddhanta later. परमार्थतस्तु न कृष्णः न पार्थः नापि उपदेशः एकमेवाद्वितीयं ब्रह्मा अस्ति व्यवहारतस्तु सर्वमपि द्वैतम् इति न काचिद् अस्माकं क्षतिः. There is nothing problematic with us. So in Vyavahara you can have these things. In the absolute sense this is not there. This is well known to students of Vedanta. So now he asks, okay, now you tell me what is your Leela. By Leela Ishvara is engaging in this teaching. You want to say, what is this Leela of Ishvara, of Krishna? So what is Leela? Now he has to explain the Vishishta Advaitin. For Leela, if he has to explain, give an Udaharanam and explain, tell me, I don't know what Leela is, then you have to say, hey, Leela is like the play of a child. Balavat iti navachyam. Belamkunda Ramarake wants to say, don't say Leela is like a sport of a child, because a child is Agnyaha, he is not intelligent, and a child still has sakamatvam. So there is some desire, some vasana is also there for the child, which is prompting him to do what he is doing. Are you saying the same is the case with Ishvara? Is Ishvara akamaha or sakamaha? Is Ishvara sarvagnaha or agnaha? Therefore, you cannot give balaha, balakrida as an example for Leela of Ishvara. No, he is like a Maharaja. So Rajnaha Kanduka Viharavat. So suppose this Raja, he has some sports to play, so he plays a ball game, or he's going in a ship or something, on a boat he's going just as play. Like a king, he's free, he can do whatever he wants. Similarly, Ishvara's Leela is like a king's play. Suppose you say no, so king also is still Sakamatvam is there even for king. Tasya tatra sukhakama pravritti darshanat. A king is engaging in those things because he is sukhakamaha. Is Ishvara also sukhakamaha? Is Ishvara sukha something that now he has to newly obtain? That cannot be the case. You cannot say lokanugrahartham. So this upadeshaha. So Leela is nothing but lokanugraha. You cannot say. For that he says, because lokanugraha rupe prayojane avashishte sati bhagavataha purna kamatva vyaghatat. How can Bhagavan be purna kamaha? So he has no desire left to be fulfilled. That is like you and me. Suppose at least people like me, we have some desires, and that desire, if it is fulfilled, then we are happy. Not so the case with Ishvara. That cannot be the case with Ishvara. Therefore, so this lokanugraha cannot be one desire yet that is remaining unfinished or unfulfilled for Ishvara. If I do lokanugraha, then I will be happy. Ishvara cannot say. That cannot be an unfulfilled desire of Ishvara. Ishvara cannot have unfulfilled desires, basically. So therefore, you cannot have any explanation for what is this Leela. Instead of saying Leela, you say, like I am saying, you also say Mayaya. So tasmat tavapi mayayvatra sharanam. Why don't you also just agree that it is because of Maya? Why are you postulating something called something this Leela? So he wants to Ramarai Kavi wants to point out. But then you might ask, by Maya also, how is it possible? So Maya makes everything possible. That is what he says, quotes here. Mayayam sarva sambhavat iti nyayat. So in Maya, due to Maya, everything is possible. So aghatita ghatana patiyasi Maya. So like Bhagavad Pada himself says, in fact, by Maya it is possible means, so it is just possible as a verbal. So as a point of view, it is possible. In the absolute sense, it is not there. Like Akhandananda Saraswati ji says, so अज्ञान से जो होता है वो असल में नहीं होता है. So Maya, through Maya, it is possible means actually it is not there. That is the idea. So here an important thing I want to again shortly digress and say the quote he gives. You see in Ramaraya Kavi's Vyakhyas, we usually don't find him quoting other acharyas and writing. Very rarely we will come across that he's quoting. He must have studied them. He must have had an idea what they are saying. But this quoting, so it looks like he's independently thinking. At least that is another thing that I would like to submit. He's thinking, and by himself, by Hayagriva Anugraha, he is getting these thoughts, no doubt. But then you don't see him very often quoting these things. But then rarely he does quote, and the text that he quotes is Panchadashi. This extract is from Panchadashi, which is very important again. In Ramaraya Kavi's life, it is said in his biography, it is written, Panchadashi is the text that has changed him. There was a visitor to his village, son-in-law of one of the persons in the same Agrahara. That son-in-law was a student of Advaita Vedanta. So these people were having a conversation. That son-in-law, visitor son-in-law and Ramaraya Kavi having a conversation. He was asking, what are you studying? Something. So he said, I'm studying a text called Panchadashi. So Ramaraya Kavi asked, okay, can I look at this text? I will give it to you tomorrow. I will return it to you tomorrow. So that visiting son-in-law gives the book, and then Ramaraya Kavi reads it. Next morning, by the time the son-in-law comes, so he just asks him, can you explain this verse to me? He asks Ramaraya Kavi. That is Vikalpo Nirvikalpasya Savikalpasya Va Bhavet. Very famous shloka in the first chapter of Panchadashi itself. Students of Vedanta will know. So he quotes that and says, can you explain the shloka to me? That student is not able to explain. But Ramaraya Kavi very nicely, so he explains what he understood of that shloka. That shloka's explanation was the turning point for Ramaraya Kavi. And then that student ends up studying Panchadashi under Ramaraya Kavi. Then he even requests him to teach Gita Bhashyam. And that is how Ramaraya Kavi, perhaps as even he was teaching, he made down these notes which forms Bhāṣyārkaprakāśa Vyakhya for us. It is said, it is recorded from his manuscripts, written manuscripts, you can see that there are no strikings also of Ramaraya Kavi. He just writes and writes and writes without even having to strike away something. Some of his very big books, like Vedanta Muktavali, for example, he finished it in a month or something. Amazing to even think about. Today, people are publishing those works with mistakes, typographical errors. In fact, unfortunately, a very popular edition of Vedanta Muktavali has completely skipped the introduction portion of Ishavasya Upanishad. They have just started somewhere in between. I don't know why it has happened like that. But Ramaraya Kavi's own handwritten manuscript, there are no mistakes, just writes away. Anyway, coming back to this point, this Mayayam Sarva Sambhavat, he quotes Vidyaranya's Panchadashi here, Chitradvipa Prakaranam, and he says, due to Maya, it can be possible. Next, another point is raised is, so Krishna through Maya he can teach, but what about your subsequent acharyas? This is Ramanujacharya's criticism. Your subsequent acharyas, what is prompting them to engage in this teaching? You see, for Vedantin, students of Vedantin, subsequent acharyas engaging in teaching is only a bhushana. It is only their kripa that they are teaching us, even though they do not have. Puja Swami Dayananda Saraswati Ji used to say like this: in the acharya's view, there is no problem. In your view, my view, there is a problem. So the acharya has to come down to the level of the student, see a non-existent problem, and then rise him above from that problem. That is his kripa. I also think about this. So for us, for Vedantin students of Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, acharyas engaging in teaching is the promise of Jivan Mukti, the tenability of Jivan Mukti itself, which is very unique to Advaita Vedanta. So this idea of Jivan Mukti, so this is the tenability of Jivan Mukti is pointed out by these acharyas engaging teaching, writing works, etc. But for the opponent, it is always a criticism. How can he? This was raised in the morning. Some of the speakers also raised it. So if he has in fact had aparoksha jnanam, how can an acharya engage in teaching? If he did not have aparoksha jnanam, how can he engage in teaching? Without jnanam, there is nothing to speak about. Having had jnanam, there is no way to speak. So this seems to be some catch 22. What to do? Now again, he quotes this very famous example that he gives, very well known to students of Vedanta. Aparokshi krita atma tattvasyapi guroho yavat dehapatam बाधिताध्यास अनुवृत्त्या व्यवहार लोप अभावात्. There is no problem of a realized teacher having any vyavahara, loka vyavahara, no problem, no untenability. It can happen through badhita anuvritti. So badhita anuvritti, usually the teachers give a particular kind of example, but in higher texts of Vedanta, we find another type of example which Ramaraya Kavi quotes here. So he mentions this example, and we know. So, for example, this example comes up in Advaita Siddhi. That we know the example is unbeatable. Akatya yukti it is. Once you ask the opponent, you know that you are different from the sthula sharira. You are the sukshma sharira. That is what jiva is. So, according to Dvaitins, they have something that this, at least that you are sukshma sharira, everybody accepts. You are not the sthula sharira. You know. Having known that you are not the sthula sharira, you still act as though you are the sthula sharira. How is it possible? Ramaraya Kavi raises this point. You know that you are the sukshma sharira, not the sthula sharira. Dehatirikta atma you are. Still you are able to say manushyaha aham, vaishnavaha aham, ramanujaha aham iti bravishi. So katham bravishi? Tadvad asmakam kinna syat. Why can't you accept the same for us? Badhitanuvritti. Ajnanam has been eliminated, but some potency of it seems to be still working. So there are various ways to explain this in Advaita Vedanta, but that is what Ramaraya Kavi is invoking here. Badhitanuvritti. So he says again, Purupakshi might ask, Badhitanuvrittasya bhedajnanasya upadeshadi pravritti hetutvam na. You cannot say, okay, Badhitanuvritti can have Dvaita Darshanam is possible due to Badhitanuvritti, but Upadesha, how can you have by Badhitanuvritti? Upadesha is a much stronger thing. Badhitanuvritti does not have so much potency. Now Ramaraya Kavi says, why? Having known that you are Dehatirikta Atma, are you not engaging in eating, in sleeping, etc.? Somebody who has known that he is Dehatirikta Atma, would he not still eat with his mouth? That is what he is telling. Naham dehaha iti manvanaha, nahi mukhena bhunkte, bhoktum ichhativa. You have a desire to eat, that is, you have a hunger, and you have this mukhena bhojanam, etc. Just like you are continuing, the same thing continues with this acharya also, badhitanuvritti. Then he goes on into a lot of expression, other discussion also. I'm just skipping that and coming back to another point. Before that is his critique of Ramanuja Matam itself, the second half of my portion of my talk. Before that, he gives a presentation, Bimba Bhutaha Ishvaraha, Pratibimba Bhutaha Jivaha. How can Bimba have Upadesha to Pratibimba itself? He nicely explains. But then I wanted to point out to one fact about Ramaraya Kavi's view. So in Siddhanta Bindu, Madhusudana Saraswati raises this Bimba Pratibimba Vada is well known in Advaita. He mentions it, various Vadas, Madhusudana Saraswati mentions there, and then says, quotes the famous shloka of Sureshwaracharya, that we have no problem with any prakriya, yaya ya bhavet pumsam vyutpattihi pratyagatmani That shloka he quotes, and he says every other prakriya you can accommodate in this way. There, Bellamkonda Ramaraya Kavi mentions 25 prakriyas in his Siddhanta Sindhu, which is a Vyakhyan Siddhanta Bindu. It is unbelievable how much he has thought about so rigorously. He says you can explain Jiveshwara Bheda Vyavastha through any of these prakriyas. It's still okay. We have no problem in the absolute sense. Now, very quickly coming back to the second portion of my presentation, which is Ramaraya's discussion. Now, having defended Advaita, I'm just giving a flavor of this text, mind you. I cannot, of course, go into the entire text in this short period. Now, he gives a critique of Ramanuja Matam. He says, so, Vastutastu, Ramanuja Mataha eva, Ramanuja Mate eva, Sutaram Upadesha Anupapattihi Upadesha Anarthakyamcha. In fact, in Ramanuja's Matam, there is Upadesha Anupapattihi, and then there is also futility. Upadesha is untenable, and then any Upadesha is futile also. He makes two criticisms there of Ramanuja Matam. Why is, first of all, Upadesha Anupapattihi? He gives various arguments. One flavor of his argument is, you say Ishvaraha is Chidachit Sharirakatvena Chid Antastaha Paramatma Krishnaha Chitaha Arjunasya Bahihi Abhimukhyena Guru San Katham Varteta. So you are saying Ishvara is the Shariri, that is the indweller of this Chid and Achit, that is Jagat and Jiva. All of these form the body for Ishvara, and Ishvara is the real Antaryamin, the absolute indweller of all these things. The absolute indweller of Chit and Achit, how can he come in front of Arjuna? And then Abhimukhena, he's facing Arjuna. So these things, how is it possible for you to explain at all? So Nahyantaram vastu bahihi syat was something that is Sarvantaraha. So Sarvantaryamin, this Ishvara, how can he come outside? If Ishvara comes outside, Krishna is outside Arjuna, then in fact Krishna becomes the Sharira for this Chit and Achit. Your postulation is to say Chit and Achit is the Sharira for Ishvara, but the way you are explaining, it looks like you are saying Chit and Achit forms the Sharira for Ishvara. That is one strain of explanation he goes on to give. So another strain of explanation that he goes on to give is something like this was quoted earlier in one of the talks also. The explanation, Karyam Karanat Ananyat, that explanation. So entire Jagat is born from Ishvara as the Karanam. And then, in fact, Vishishtadvaitins accept Brahma Parinamavada. So it is that Mula Karanam which has transformed into this Jagat. So this Karanam and Karyam is non-different from Karanam. So what does that even mean to say Krishna is teaching Arjuna? Arjuna is in essence non-different from Krishna, because he is Arjuna as Karyam cannot be non-different from Karanam. How is that possible? Any teaching? How is any subsequent Acharya also able to teach any of this Siddhanta to you? Why? Because subsequent Acharya also knows my Karanam is Ishvara, and that same Ishvara is the Karanam for this Shishya also. So therefore, how can this teaching make any sense? So students of Brahma Sutra Bhashya will know. So this argument, Tadabhinna Bhinnasya Tadabhinnatvam, they say. So my Karanam is Ishvara. Ishvara is also the Karanam for another person. So how can I am non-different from my Karanam, the other person is non-different from his Karanam. For both of us, the Karanam is Ishvara. That Ishvara, how can I talk about what does Upadesha even mean to him and to me? Or if I am the teacher or if I am the student, this approaching everything makes no logical sense. So that is what he has to say. And then there are many arguments he gives on this now. Upadesha Anupapattihi, untenability of teaching in Ramanuja Matam. Finally, he gives this Upadesha Anarthakyam. There is no utility, futile. In fact, your teaching itself is futile. Very nice portion. This is how he concludes this entire discussion. So, Sarve Pyastikaha, Laukikaha, Tarkikascha, Veda Anumanadina, Swabhinnam Ishwaram Pratipadyamanaha, Tasmad Bibhyatyeva. Everybody knows. So a Pandita, a Pamara, Tarkika, so Veda Pathi, a Mimamsaka, may perhaps not Mimamsakas, everybody know that there is an Ishvara who is different from me. So he knows there is a Ishvara different from me, and that Ishvara, something that is different from you. So is a source of fear also. So bibhyatyeva. He is only afraid that there is some controller outside who's controlling over me, etc. So and then bhishasmad vatah pavate. Already something different from me. I'm afraid. Shruti is coming and saying bhishasmad vatah pavate, bhishode tisuryaha, etc. By due to his fear, the fear of Ishvara, so winds are blowing, etc. He is speaking about. What about me, one small vulnerable jiva? This person now, this jiva, this Shishya, he is already in fear. He knows there is an Ishvara separate and then anything separate. So Udaramantarang Kurute, etc. All that he's quoting here. So Ramaraya Kavi. This Shishya now goes to a teacher. What will the teacher teach? Ishvara is separate from you. And then what is the purpose of the teaching? I already know Ishvara is separate from me. Guru is teaching the same thing. That is only strengthening my fear. So what is the Purushartha there? So there is no Bhaya Nivritti. There is only reinforcing of Bhaya. So तस्माद् व्यर्थमेव भेदवादि gurupasadanam sishyasya. So the Shishya approaching the Guru is only vyartha, futile. So he goes into this way, a lot of arguments on defending Advaita and then criticizing Vishishtadvaita, etc. Puja Swamiji, Dayananda Saraswati ji used to give this example of Murari the barber. It seems a barber was there, he was a barber to a Advaita teacher. And then one student came and then, Advaita teacher. And then that student was studying Dvaita. One student approached the teacher to study Dvaita under the teacher, and then the teacher used to teach him. This barber sometimes used to sit there and then give him a shave or something like to the mundanam, etc. And then this teacher is teaching, you are different, Ishvara is different, Jagat is different, Jivas are different. He's teaching that 10 years he has studied this Dvaita under him. Suddenly one day, this barber was there when the class was going on. The barber said, yeah, I also know Ishvara is different, you are different, everything is different. Then the student realized what I studied for 10 years is just reinforcement of what people already know. What's the purpose of all this teaching anyway? The mere fact that there is some Upadesha, some Shastra, etc., that itself is an indicator to say that there is something more to reality than what meets the eye. What meets the eye is just plain duality, which is simply known to everybody. The fact that there is some Shastra itself shows Advaita has to be true. That kind of moment that Shishya has, and then goes and study Vedanta. Dayananda Saraswati Ji, Puja Swamiji used to give this very nice example. So I conclude now with just reading one statement, two lines of Bhāṣyārkaprakāśa. This comes in the beginning of this charcha, but I am reading that as conclusion. Very nice conclusion to the topic. Tattvopadesha samaye aupadhikam bhedam anudyeva paramarthika bhedo bodhaniyaha iti न अनुवादमात्रेण भेदस्य पारमार्थिकत्वं कृष्णः इति अर्जुन इति न राधिका इति व्यवह्रियमाणाः सर्वे वयम् अविनाशी तद्ब्रह्मैव येन सर्वमिदं ततम् इति श्लोकद्वयस्य एकैव अर्थः श्लोकद्वयस्य एकवाक्यार्थः तस्मात् सर्वव्यापकस्य नित्यस्य आत्मनः भेदकाभावात् नास्ति पारमार्थिकः आत्मभेदः भेदकानां नास्ति भेदकानां सर्वेषाम् आत्मन्येव भेदकानां सर्वेषाम् आत्मन्येव व्याप्तत्वात् व्यवहारतस्तु कल्पितो अस्ति आत्मभेदः आकाशभेदवत्. Therefore, in Vyavahara, you cannot have all Bheda, but in reality, in Paramartha, for us, there is no Bheda. Upadeshadayam Vadaha. So, Jnate Dvaitam na Vidyate, as Gaudapadacharya himself points out. So I will stop here for now. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om. So whatever I have said is all due to the teachings of my Guru Swami Tattvavedananda Saraswati and my teacher Dr. Rajit Biswas. I understand he's in the audience. My pranams to them. All mistakes, of course, are mine, my limited understanding. I end here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vaidyanathan
Thank
ji,
you. Thank you.
for a fascinating, presenting on a very fascinating topic on Śāstropadeśa-upapatti. Thank you for putting it in a very simple, very concise, but comprehensive manner. Thank you very much for doing this.